Welcome to Talking Kootenay Books. My name is Keith Powell. I'm your host. And today our guest is Ramona Wildeman. Ramona, you're from Kimberley, and within the last year you've published a new book called Siege of Herons. It's a most interesting book, a very unique book, and it really focuses on collective nouns. And I have to say, I didn't know a lot about collective nouns until I read your book, and it sort of reminded me of my school days when we used to sit around and try and come up with Pride of Lions, those kind of things. So just tell me what really excited you about the use of collective nouns.
Well, I love language and words, and reading. But similar to you, I would, when I became aware of what a collective noun was, obviously a kid, and then as I was an adult, my sisters and I would play games if we saw a group. This is a classic example, a group of skateboarders. We'd say, what would you call them?
Right.
A deck, a flip, and we would just make up names and things like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
You know, you challenged within the book for people to come up with their own collective nouns, and I didn't really think about that until I sort of sat down and just analyzed it, and oh yeah, you can come up with your own collective nouns. And I think one of the challenges was the skateboarder, and I thought ollie of skateboarders, which I think is a move in the skateboard genre. But anyways, tell me about how the whole concept came together. You took this idea of collective nouns and turned it into a whole book. Tell me how that all came together.
Well, I really wanted to share my love of words with other people, and also words that maybe are out of flavor, for lack of a better expression. But you need some kind of vehicle or format to put it in, so that's why I decided to do the alphabet.
Right.
And then realizing, okay, so I have 26 letters, and then I have to pick the collective nouns to fit them. And there is no traditional collective noun in the X. So that was a bit of a challenge, and so I came up with a solution.
Yeah, we're going to get you to read a few of those for us, and so you'll be able to tell us what you came up with for X.
Yeah.
So I want to also talk about your illustrator. The book is beautifully illustrated, and I think that it even makes the storytelling that much more powerful. Can you just tell me a little bit about the illustrator?
Sure. So Lou is, she is a photographer and a graphic designer, illustrator. I was introduced to her through a company called the Self-Publishing Agency. So they kind of help first-time self-publishers put together. So I tapped into their resources, and they introduced us, and absolutely, the book wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for her illustrations. So yeah.
Yeah, they're very colorful, and they really do tie the story together. So let's just take the book, and I'll just have you maybe read a few of the opening passages there, and just give us a flavor of what the book is all about.
Sure, happy to. So the first one is an aurora of polar bears.
Okay.
And then the second one is a bevy of quail.
Okay.
People might be familiar with this one. A charm of hummingbirds.
Okay.
A down of sheep.
Okay.
An erst of bees.
Okay.
And a flight of dragons.
Okay, so there's a natural tie-in to all of these collective nouns. Let's just go back to the aurora of polar bears. So what's the connection there? What sort of inspired you to come up with that one?
Well, these are not, I didn't make up these words.
Okay.
Right, so there is there is an aurora of polar bears, so someone coined it before I did.
Okay.
And so that's an interesting point, because polar bears and the north, so that's, collective nouns often are created because of observation, and that's something I'm pretty keen on. So that's another reason why I like the words, is they're based on observation and noticing.
Okay.
And so obviously polar bears in the north and aurora, that's where that connection came up with.
So a natural tie-in to what?
The environment that they're found in.
Sure,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Let's continue on. Maybe give us a sample of a few more.
Gaze of raccoons, that's another really clear one. It's based on a visual, right?
So when I think of raccoon.
Yeah, and there's a really great story about this illustration. it's Lou, the illustrator, went on a picnic in Stanley Park, and it was a twilight picnic. So they unpacked everything, sat down on their blanket, and then they looked around, and by that time the sun had set, and all they could see was all these raccoon eyes staring out from the forest, and so that was
That's the gaze of the
that's
raccoon.
the gaze of raccoons.
Okay, let's continue on.
Holiness of Donuts. So
Okay.
this is probably one of the most recent
Okay.
ones that obviously somebody coined. It's not mine. I found it online.
Cool. I think Tim Hortons would be happy about that one.
And then Intrusion of Cockroaches, which is
Yeah.
perfect, right?
Right.
Because like that's just horrible.
Right. Yeah.
Jubilee of Eagles.
Yeah, I puzzled on that one. I was trying to make the connection on a Jubilee of Eagles.
Well, this is something I learned after the fact. So this is my first self-published book. And it was only after Lou had done the illustration that we realized that a Jubilee of Eagles is more describing a series of eagles flying through the air, which you would see, it has more of a connotation to Jubilee, right?
Yeah, so I guess there's some joy in that, isn't
Exactly,
there? Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
continue on.
A Knot of Toads.
Okay.
And this one, I'm not sure about. I feel like maybe because knots are bumpy,
Right. Yeah, I can see the connection there.
yeah. And Loveliness of Ladybugs.
Yeah, that's a beautiful illustration. The ladybugs. I wish that was my garden. Ladybugs are good for your garden, right?
Yeah. This was going to be the cover originally. The book was going to be called this.
Okay.
And then just before it went to press, I Googled Loveliness of Ladybugs just on a whim, and Macmillan had just published a book on collective nouns also called this.
Oh, okay.
Now mine is far superior in terms of its illustrations.
Right.
But I didn't want to get into any trouble,
Sure.
so I changed mine to Siege of Herons.
Well, Siege of Herons works nicely too. So, okay, continue on.
Murder of Crows. That's
That's a traditional one.
Yeah.
I recognize that one.
yeah,
for
that's
sure.
most if people ask me a question, what is your book about? And I say collective nouns and you get a little bit of a glaze over, then I say Murder of Crows and they're like, "Oh yeah, I understand." Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pride of Lions, I think I
Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah.
Nosegay of Flowers.
Yeah, I had to think about that one, but then I see the connection after. So we're talking about the scent or the fact that we find that very pleasant.
Yeah, and also a nosegay is like a little tiny bouquet, so that's just a group
Sure.
of flowers is a nosegay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's just mark the book there. We'll come back to it in a moment. But I also wanted to ask, when you were sitting down initially, were you thinking that this could be a book, or was it? I'm just trying to find out the inspiration of what brought this all together.
Well, I've always wanted to write a book since I was in grade 2, or whenever I can remember. And so I've been thinking about this book for a really long time.
Okay.
And then it just kept percolating, and then I was trying to figure out how would I do this? I had no idea. And I had just, I'm a photographer too, so I had taken some photos over the years, and then I created a calendar, and I didn't know how to format it, so I had someone help me format it. And just that process of like, I can ask somebody to help me put the
Right.
book together.
Right.
Yeah. So I've always wanted to write a book, and this seemed like a good.
Right. So it seemed like a nice project. So
Yeah.
you put the book out about a year ago, and you've had an opportunity to go out and show it to people. You've sold copies to, friends, family, and acquaintances. What's been the initial reaction to the book?
It's been really great. I've sold. My original print run was 500. I think I've sold about 350 hardcovers. People love the book. It's got two purposes. Like, it's cataloged in the library as a children's picture book.
Okay.
So I think it's really great for, kids to look at. I mean, the pictures are really illustrated. I think I envisioned people sitting in a chair like this, holding the book, and then sharing it with a young person.
Right.
So someone who loves words would share their love of words with
Right.
someone else.
So the initial impression I got was a children's book, but I think it goes beyond that, right?
Oh, yeah.
It also appeals to word lovers or people that love to read and
Yeah.
And so forth. Have you had that kind of feedback?
Yes, I would say most people buy it as a word lover book.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee table book for Airbnbs. I've sold lots, which is strangely
Mm.
a funny market, right?
Right.
Yeah. Great for teachers or soon-to-be teachers. Like lots of teachers have bought the book.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So you have a little sticker on the front that talks about an award that you've been recognized with. But before we talk about that, can you just read us a few more pages?
Sure. So we are at an orchestra of musicians,
Okay. Yeah, that one makes sense.
a plump of ducks.
I had to read that one a couple times.
So plump of ducks is for ducks on the land,
Okay.
and a raft of ducks is for a group of ducks on the water.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Now I can see the connection there for sure. Beautifully illustrated again. Yes.
A quiver of surfboards.
Okay. That's one I struggled with as well.
So quiver is also used for arrows.
Okay. Yes.
So so anything, I'm assuming anything sort of tall and quiver of pens
Okay.
is also a collective noun for pens is a quiver.
Right.
So I think anything tall and skinny that's in a group.
Okay.
I was at Kaminko Gardens,
Mhm.
and there is skis all lined up, sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
garden,
Making like a
bordering,
fence.
and I commented about that's a quiver of skis.
Okay,
Right? Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense now.
Rabble of butterflies,
Okay. Yeah.
and then siege of herons.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I have only ever seen one siege of herons.
Hmm.
Uh,
Usually a heron is a pretty solitary.
yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah.
unique
Yeah.
visual experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's pause there again and just go back and talk about the awards. So your book was a finalist in awards competition.
Yes. Yeah.
So just tell me about that.
So it's a awards competition's reader based, so
Hmm.
people sign up to read of all different categories, and then you can like you suggest I would be a good candidate,
Mhm.
and then they have over a period of time to read, and then they select their top three.
I
So I was
see.
named one of the top three in the children's picture book category.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was a nice honor. And you said you've also entered the book in a few other awards competitions?
Yes. Yeah. I have two more.
Continue on. Let's read a few more here.
So tuft of grass
Okay, yeah.
and an unkindness of ravens. That's also one that people know.
Okay, yeah. I did read that one and I went back to it and reread it. I'm not making the connection. Tell me.
I think that from my research, just ravens are, they tend to be like they sort of pick at things and
Well,
they're.
they've got a little bit of a rebel reputation. Is
yeah,
that what
yeah,
we're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So historically, a group of them just seemed maybe somebody you wouldn't want to sort of mess with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
A venue of vultures.
Okay.
Yeah. And a wisdom of owls.
Yeah, that one really made sense. So we associate wisdom with owls, don't we, on
Yeah.
a regular basis?
So when I was choosing, another collective noun for owls is parliament.
Okay, yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. But I wanted to use P for plump of ducks.
Right.
Right. So, and it's my book, I get to choose. So,
Right.
so by choosing one over another, it forced me to make a different decision. So in the end, but this is one of my
Right.
favorite illustrations too.
That's sort of the nice thing about being the author and the self-publisher. You can make those arbitrary decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That was fun.
Okay, now we're on to the X. So
Yeah.
tell me about the story behind the X.
So exaltation of larks. So there, like I mentioned, there was no X. So it's a challenge for someone to come up with another collective noun using the letter X. So I just used exaltation of larks, and then I had Lou make the X large
Mhm.
to sort of tie in with the book.
So is that what that's you made up yourself, or is it?
No, there's an exaltation of larks is one of the oldest collective nouns from the 15th century. It goes back to.
Okay.
Yeah, so I sort of tapped into that.
Okay.
So it worked.
Okay, so I'm excited to see what the next one is.
A yap of chihuahuas, which
Self-explanatory there.
exactly, and a zap of lasers.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Really neat. Okay, well, thank you for previewing those for us. I just, are there any collective nouns in there that you invented yourself, or are
No.
they ones that you?
Yeah, they're all ones
In
that
common
I
usage?
found. Yeah, I don't know if the word common is correct.
Mm.
I would say that would be one of my goals, is to get people to use the words more often and,
Mhm.
and challenge people to, like, you know, when you see a group of things, if you see a bunch of tires rolling down the road, what would you call it? Like, challenge yourself with what I call that group of
Right.
things, objects. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking along that line. I was thinking, what would you call a group of interviewers? And I thought maybe a chat of interviewers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
or a talk of interviewers. So it just shows the creativity that can go into thinking about collective nouns. So many of us find language, having to go through vocabulary and so forth in school, being a bit of a drudgery. But the thing I like about your book, it puts some fun and creative expression into it. Was that sort of one of your goals?
Yeah, exactly. I would say language, the love of language and words and reading and observation,
Mhm.
right? I'm really keen. I have two 28-year-olds, and they will tell you that pay attention, notice the world around you, slow down, appreciate things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that sort of comes through in the collective nouns and what you've presented
Yeah.
in the book. And it's not a scholarly book, yet it talks about a subject that people can learn from,
Yeah.
and in a fun way. So
Mhm.
to me, that's a great learning environment.
Well, thank you.
For sure. So let's just talk a little bit about the actual publishing of the book. So it is a self-published project. How did you source that all out, and how did that all come together? And it's one. I'm a published author myself. I've self-published a number of books, and I often have people come up and say, I want to publish a book, I want to do this and do that, and it just never goes beyond the stage of I want to do this.
Mhm.
And how did you take it from just an idea and actually make it happen?
I guess it was a goal of mine, like I said, to write a book. And Instagram, I'm on Instagram, and I take pictures, and I stumbled across this company called the Self-Publishing Agency. So I investigated into, and their whole role is to help people tell the stories that they want to tell. And the idea is that you shouldn't have to wait for somebody to touch you with a magic wand and say, yes, your story is worth telling, right?
Mhm.
So it does cost money, right? So I invested in learning how to publish the book. So they kind of walk you through all the steps.
Right.
And then hopefully when I do my second book, I don't have to, I know the pathways now, right?
Right.
So I can do those things myself. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Well, hats off to you, because the book presents itself very nicely, well put together and beautifully designed. I have to say that I've seen some self-publishing projects that ended up being less than sterling, and yours stands out to me. It really is a nice project and well put together.
Well, thank
So
you.
that'll definitely help sales, I know that, and it'll give credibility to what you're doing. So you're talking about the future as well. You're looking at another project, are you?
Yeah.
Are you willing to share what you're working on?
Well, it's another word book, so
Okay.
it's kind of top secret. But yeah, it's another word book, and I'm just working to see if I can fit it within the alphabet format.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I can or not. So if I can't, then I might have to rework some of the details. But yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I'll tell you what, keep us posted and let us know how that project comes
Oh
together.
yeah, I will.
I just want to go back and explore, the sales and distribution of your book. You said at this point in time it's available on Amazon. It's also available, you've been selling copies directly. But you said you've been reaching out to school teachers and also libraries and so forth. So just tell me how that's been going, and maybe some of your future marketing plans.
Yeah. So initially I started out just working on I'm from the Lower Mainland, and so I published this book while I was moving to the Kootenays. So
Okay.
it became a little bit difficult to try and it was also right in the middle of COVID. All of this stuff was happening. So I just focused on selling the books myself.
Sure.
And working through my networks of people. I did a Christmas market last year, and so I got a fair amount out. So the Canadian people, it's a hardcover book. I mean, it's 10 by 10. I learned so much publishing this book, and it's beautiful, but it's too heavy.
Right. Tough to mail at mailing costs, right?
Yeah, that really. So I learned, I probably wouldn't do another 10 by 10 hardcover book because it just tipped the postage into, which, if your book is in stores, people aren't paying postage, right? So that was a bit of a thing, but So and then Amazon, there's a soft cover, so it's print on demand with Amazon, and so I'm really working. This year, my goal is to increase my sort of distribution into the States and really try and get some movement on the Amazon side. I mean, I don't make very much money on, but that's not the real reason I wrote the book. It's more just to get it out there. Yeah.
So if someone is watching our show and would like to obtain a copy of your book, could they go to a local bookstore and pick one up? Or will
Not yet. They have to contact me.
Okay.
Yeah, if they want a hardcover. Yeah.
Right, and you mentioned, I think earlier, that you're on Instagram and so forth, so that people could actually contact you through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any plans to see if you can get it into some local stores?
I am. So the way it worked is the Kimberley Library picked up my book, and then from the Kimberley Library, I did a talk at the library about 10 things I learned self-publishing my children's book, and then I used them to help me get into the Cranbrook Library, and so now the good folks at the Cranbrook Library have given me a nice little blurb to use that I'm going to use to try and get into the rest of the libraries in the Kootenays, and then work my way through that. I'm a big fan of libraries, so I would like to get my book into a lot of libraries in BC if I can. Yeah.
Yeah, and that it's a good network to get into for sure, and if you work with your local librarians, they're a very good resource.
Yeah.
So, good. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, and it's sort of like picking your favorite child. But what's your favorite collective noun within the pages of your book?
Well, my favorite collective noun probably is a bevy of quail, but just because my dad was a big fan of quail, and Lou's illustration is has twinklings of my dad's illustration in there, and so I lost my dad in 2019. So I would say definitely. And then Siege of Herons is probably my favorite, because when I had to replace the cover, I didn't know what, and that's when. So I just saw my first Siege of Herons when I was trying to decide on a new cover.
Right.
Yeah, and I saw 15 of them flying through the sky.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a gift.
Oh, yeah, serendipity.
Right.
Yeah.
So if a school or a library wanted you to make a presentation or do a talk or address students, you're willing to do something along that line?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I love talking about my book and
Right.
collective nouns. And I'm actually working with somebody, and we are creating coloring pages based on the illustrations.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to have those on my website, and I'm also working to create a lesson plan so that can kind of go along with the book. So if you buy the book, you can get a PDF of a lesson plan on how to teach collective nouns if you didn't want to do that yourself.
That would be popular with teachers, I would think.
I think hoping so.
Good idea. So I'm just wondering, when you launch on a project like this, what you said you did a program, 10 Things You Learned About Self-Publishing. What sort of unexpected things did you come across?
Well, definitely the size. Size matters, right? That's for sure. The other one was like doing more research. I felt that, I probably should have looked to see what other people were calling their books on collective nouns. There's not a lot out there, but the odds that we both pick A Loveliness of Ladybugs, right? So, because I paid for that cover, so I had to then go back to Lou and pay for another cover illustration, so that would be another lesson I learned.
Right.
I would say evergreen, stories that are evergreen, because I mean, I still do have books to sell, and because it is kind of timeless, the subject,
Right.
I can sell it today, I can sell it next year, I can sell it 2 years from now.
Right.
Right, yeah,
Yeah. Good.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest. So our guest today, Ramona Wildeman. Ramona, you've put together the book Siege of Herons, and thank you so much for being our guest. It's really been a pleasure, and congratulations on a great-looking book.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. This is Talking Kootenay Books, and my name is Keith Powell.